Hello, everybody. This is Mike from the Hey, Are You Still There podcast. My wife Beth and I would like to invite you to join us each week as we examine life at the intersection of marriage, family, careers, and ministry. Through 28 years of ministry, 26 years of marriage, 23 years of professional careers, and 21 years of being parents to 3 kids, our fun and honest discussions promise to have something for everyone. And now, on to the show. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another edition of the Hey, Are You Still There podcast. This is Mike.
And Beth.
And we are back once again. Are you still doing it, lady?
Yeah, still doing it.
That's great. We ran into somebody last night who listens to the podcast. And
Faithfully.
As soon as they saw me, they were like, do it, lady.
And then yelled it to me, like down at VBS. We should just give her a shout out by name.
Well, I don't want to embarrass her, but Taryn.
I was like, she's such a faithful listener.
She is. So, Taryn, do it, lady. Eric, do it, lady. And then we had a guest that had dropped off some kids at Vacation Bible School. She was walking out the door, heard us saying, do it, lady, turned around, came back in, and was like, are you talking about that office guy? And we're like, yes. And she was like, oh, my husband loves that guy.
Yeah. And so we didn't know if that was going to be a real draw or turn off for her eventually, as far as hearing us talk about that at VBS at the church. If she'd be like, oh, these are cool people. Or if she'd be like, oh, those are those kind of people.
His name's Chit. You can look him up. Yeah. He's being interviewed everywhere now. Yeah. And the dude that plays Chit, you would never recognize him.
I looked it up because I haven't gone back. I need to go back and watch all of them, I feel like.
There's 25, 27 episodes so far.
Oh, so I could do that while I exercise. Yeah, that would keep me entertained. That'd be fun.
It would.
Yeah.
And then you would understand the lore of Chit.
Where do you watch them, if you don't send them to me?
Well, they're on Instagram. It's Jay Renshaw is the guy's name.
Okay. Does he have them all posted under him?
So when you go to Jay Renshaw's Instagram page, that's all he has on there now is just his 20-some Chit skits. So you can start at the beginning and work your way through. The most famous, the one that's gotten millions of views, is the one where he starts out in the doorway and says, is there a black person here? And that one has exploded. And that was the first one I ever saw. That may have been episode 7 or 8, maybe. And then it's been on since then.
But you don't want to give away what happens.
The punchline.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
It is. It's funny. And so that one's, and he just looks like such a goofball in his character.
Yeah.
He just looks.
He looks like such a normal guy.
Yeah.
So are you still doing it?
Well, right now I'm still drinking my coffee out of my Regal Cam cup that Ross gave me as a gift.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're going to take a picture of that and put it up on the social. We haven't done that yet, I don't think.
It's so I always talk about how Cam is regal and majestic.
Who is Cam for those that don't know?
Oh, if they don't know, then
they may be a brand new listener.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Cam is a one of a kind, unique breed of dog. He is God reached perfection with him. Everybody's like, what kind is he? We're not sure.
He's a mutt.
We got him from
he's mostly pit bull.
No, he is not. And no, you should not say he's a mutt. That mutt sounds derogatory.
He's just a mixed bag of a little bit of everything.
Yeah, but if you say a mutt, that just sounds he's a mutt, as opposed to he's $1,000 pure breed or whatever. My thing is, think about it. There are lots of other, we've had labs before. There are lots of other Labradors. There are lots, we've got Reese used a Chihuahua. Lots of Chihuahuas. There's one Cam. There's not another dog out there that has his genetic composition. He is that unique.
Not even his brothers and sisters that were also found in the same
Yeah, but we saw
litter.
Pictures of them later, and they were not as cute as him. But anyway.
Everybody thinks their kid's the cutest.
He is so handsome, and he is the sweetest, best behaved dog maybe that has ever lived. Y'all talk about it too. He doesn't chew things.
Oh, he
doesn't
listens better than our 3 kids. That's
yes, he doesn't do things he's not supposed to. He is so loving. Every time I go out of town and I come home, he gets so excited that he pees a little, like he's just wagging his tail, and he loves me and he kisses me and he misses me so much. But
That makes you feel better. I pee a little when you come back too.
Okay. Anyway, I always say that he's regal and majestic because I think he thinks he's a person. So when he sits in my lap, instead of just sitting like normal dogs do, like where you're kind of leaning forward on your front legs, he kind of sits all the way back, like on his bottom.
He has good posture.
Yeah, very good posture. And when he sits, he just sits there and he just looks around, like if we're watching TV, just kind of like, oh yes, I'm a person too. And
this isn't a small dog. This is a 60-pound dog.
No, it's not. It's not like anyway. But Ross heard me talk so much about how regal and majestic Cam is that he just gave me this cup. And I don't know if we should even talk about it on here, if people should just go to the website to see the picture.
We'll just put a picture up. So just know that we will post the picture, and then and underneath the picture it says #regal. So you can decide for yourself how regal this dog is by the picture that Ross took and had printed on this mug for Beth.
Yes, because it's pretty awesome. I think you'll love it.
Yeah. So, trying to think what else. Fantastic Four. We'll talk about that real quick. I know last week on the podcast, we kind of wrapped up some things, and Beth was getting ready to go out of town for a couple of days. I know that's a shocker. And I was going to take the weekend and do some things, and I went and saw the Fantastic Four.
Just as a little aside, I think I've gone out of town more this year than I have like in a lifetime.
I feel like every podcast, I'm like, well, Beth just got back or Beth's not here.
It's like living my best life.
You are.
Yeah. Anyway, so keep going.
That means I'm living my best life.
Yeah, because like it's the best of both worlds. You're getting your introvert self.
This makes the heart grow fonder.
Yeah, it gets recentered. Yeah. As our friend Megan says, her mom used to always say, how do I miss you if you're never gone? Mm-hmm. That's what she would say to her husband when he traveled and stuff. Yeah. Anyway, sorry, Fantastic Four. Keep going.
I mean, it's just very cliche. It's been used a million times over the last week, but the movie is fantastic. It's,
Which I haven't seen it. So.
All the reviews are great. It's scored really high on Rotten Tomatoes. It beat Superman at the box office, which I was happy about. Just because I'm a Marvel guy and not a DC guy, but it's just a good family movie. It's like what comic books should be. It's wholesome. It's funny. It's serious. The fight scenes are intense, but not too scary. I think for kids, it's great. I mean, Maria loved it. And, our daughter, who's a Marvel nut anyway, but works at Disney. She went and saw it. She put it in her top 5 Marvel movies of all time. And there's been, I think, over 30 now Marvel movies, if you can believe it. So that's high praise. I would put it in top 10, definitely. And, but it was excellent, Beth. I think you would enjoy it.
I think I would. And from what y'all said, I mean, because the one thing I had worried about was, would I know what was going on? Because I don't, and you were saying the backstory went a little fast or whatever. So yeah, I mean but I'll look at it and just see what I think. And then I'll ask you questions later.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you think back to the original Guardians of the Galaxy movie, most comic book fans, but definitely almost all non-comic book fans really didn't have a clue who Guardians of the Galaxy was. They're kind of an obscure group. And so they spent the whole first movie explaining their origins and forming them and putting them together and that kind of thing. Fantastic Four has been around a lot longer. They're one of the original, what I consider one of the original Marvel superheroes, back with Captain America and the Avengers and Spider-Man. There's the Fantastic Four. And I was a little curious how they would do the origin, because there's been a couple of Fantastic Four movies and all of them have been terrible. But the way the movie is filmed, they start off almost like a news broadcast explaining the Fantastic Four, like a recap.
Right. Like, here's who they are.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
And so the setting is just really cool. It looks like it's set in the late 50s, early 60s. But Jetson style, where there's like, the Fantastic Four have a robot butler essentially, but it's set in like the old cars, old timey dress.
Can I go off on an aside real quick that I just thought of when you thought of the Jetsons?
Yeah.
So it's so weird how you change as you grow up, because like we've joked before about like as adults, like it used to be when you were a kid, like, hey, how late can I stay up? Mom and dad, you wanted to stay up. And now it's like, I don't want to have to go to this concert because it interferes with my bedtime. Like I'll be at a concert or something and my bedtime reminder's going off. You want to get in bed. One of the things I just remember from the Jetsons was I remember how they just kind of went on this little conveyor belt thing and it would dress them and everything and like shower. But I remember that didn't they like take a pill or something to eat? I'm almost certain they did. It was like a vitamin or something. Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't remember.
Oh, because I just remember as a kid being like, well, wouldn't that be nice? I would just take, because then it would because everything like that seemed like such a distraction from like what I wanted to do.
Oh, I
like
enjoy eating too much to take
but that's what I'm saying. But that's what I'm saying now. But as a kid, I was like, well, eating, showering, getting dressed, those are all just distractions from like playing, and doing what you really want to do. But now I'm like, who would want to do that? I'm going to look that up. Anyway, keep talking about your Fantastic Four.
And while you're on the Google machine, look and see what year it was based in.
Okay.
I think we're near the year that the Jetsons was set
I think
in,
you're
or
right.
we've tasked it. And we don't have any flying cars and...
Okay, I'm right, because it says, in the cartoon The Jetsons, the characters sometimes consumed food in pill form, effectively replacing meals with nutritional supplements. It was a futuristic concept. So the pill could give you everything you needed, and you didn't have to cook and eat. But it's just funny because it's like, again...
Seems very like...
Well, it kind of goes into like the argument I've heard about AI and stuff, though, like... AI can do a lot of the, like, people are using it sometimes for really creative things, like, ooh, write this for me, write this book, or draw this, or whatever. Well, but it's like a lot of people have said, I don't want AI to necessarily do all that creative, fun stuff for me. I want AI to, like, do the stuff like cooking my meals and stuff. It's almost like it's in reverse. I feel like this is one time where the Jetsons kind of had it backwards. People enjoy eating and tasting new foods too much to want to eliminate food. Let me see when the Jetsons, what year the Jetsons.
This is riveting podcast stuff right here. It's talking out loud as she's looking up on her phone when the Jetsons were
we're not quite there yet. It was intended to take place in the year 2062.
Oh, well, we're getting close.
Well, that's true. And it is a counterpart to the Flintstones, which but I loved the Flintstones more. The Jetsons, I mean, that was good entertainment, but because I loved dinosaurs so much, I loved the Flintstones. That was one of my favorites of all time. Like, I loved it. I loved it so much.
Well, they don't make them like that anymore.
No, they don't. I mean,
or do they? You know what's a modern day Flintstones and Jetsons?
What?
King of the Hill.
No, it's not.
And it's coming back.
How is that a modern day? That has nothing to do with like any of that.
Listen, one of our next podcasts will be after King of the Hill. The revival has come back on. They have 10 episodes. It's going to be remarkable. It's going to be great.
But were they meant to be cartoons for adults?
What's that?
Jetsons and Flintstones.
Yeah, they came on primetime.
Oh, I didn't realize that. I don't think. Well,
by the time they came out in a time that they were shown on TV at night. But like when we watched them, they were Saturday morning cartoons. But no, they were meant to be like adult entertainment.
Well, okay. Anyway.
Or shows you watch as a family. It wasn't made just for kids. It wasn't Bluey.
Which has become a sensation just for our family.
But it was made to show during the during
the
during your kids' time. Or whatever.
But our family watches Bluey sometimes.
No, our family doesn't. Maria watches Bluey at times when she's home.
To
Luckily,
clarify,
she's
Maria
not
is
home.
20 years old, and so we have no reason to know as much about Bluey as we do. But she has some nice bedroom slippers.
Well, you got a Bluey sweatshirt. I got you.
I do have a Bluey sweatshirt. Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, King of the Hill's coming back.
Yeah.
And so I think everybody in the family is looking forward to that but you.
But didn't you have more to say about Fantastic Four when
No,
I
that's about
interrupted
it.
with the Jetsons?
No, that was
I
fine. Yeah,
apologize.
just go see it. It's a good movie.
Okay.
I would see it in a real theater. And we've got a really nice family-owned theater here in our town. And it's great to go see most movies. But something like this was made for high quality projector screen, all that kind of stuff. And so
I feel like a lot of those Marvel type action movies are made for that. Yeah.
So, I would go there to watch.
What you really need is my feedback on it, though, as a person who's not so into the Marvel Universe, because there have been some of those movies that while I've enjoyed them, afterwards I'm having to say, I really don't understand the connections or what was happening, because the Marvel Universe, especially once they added the multiverse, is so massive, and I think one of my things I don't like is like if a franchise or something runs out of things to do, they're like, oh, well, let's just have time travel or a multiverse. Soap operas used to do it all the time, where somebody would like have a clone come back, like they'd have a beloved character that was a villain that would die. So you'd have their quote clone come back, to like play them. I just feel like that's lazy writing when you do that.
Yeah, but people fall in love with characters,
right?
Heroes or villains. And so you really never want to see them go.
So don't kill them off.
They've all died and they've all come back.
I know, but I just think then, because then also you never really believe anybody dies in these stories. You watch it and you're like, well, they'll be back. I mean, anyway,
I don't like the multiverse stuff that Marvel does. Just
I also think their
Earth.
Time travel was flawed. Like I told you this in one of them, I think it was Endgame. I almost could not enjoy that movie because I was sitting there thinking through how I felt like the time travel concept, the way they had done it, did not work. So that's one of the problems with time travel in movies too, because if you don't really think about what you're doing and how that's changing the past or the future and the impact that's having on the entire timeline, then it just falls apart.
Yeah.
Unless you have mindless people who just go watch it for, quote, entertainment value and suspend any type of judgment of reality and what's really happening. I mean, those people might enjoy it. But like those of us that are like,
that's what these movies are supposed to be. A suspension of belief. So you're going to get caught up in they're not doing time travel right, but you can swallow the pill that says a man can get angry and turn into a giant green monster.
Well, yes,
or
because
a god from Asgard can come down here and
as long as it makes sense, and at least they try to scientifically explain like radiation doing something, the radioactive spider. Well, I can suspend enough judgment to be like, in theory, there probably could be a radioactive spider that could bite Spider-Man, and that would happen, But with the time travel, so I've told you this before, because I know y'all don't understand this. Because I will watch a movie and I will be like,
intellectual genius.
No, it is not.
You're the only person on Earth that understands time travel.
No, all systems have to have rules. That's all that I'm saying. We've talked about this before. Like magic, if you read fantasy, magic systems have to have rules. Like, again, you can't just have, this is one reason we don't like, isn't it Captain Marvel, who's like almost all powerful? Everyone has to have a weakness, like any system in the world, you have to have some sort of rules around it.
But she has a weakness.
What is her weakness? I don't remember.
She's a woman.
Oh gosh, stop it. Just stop it right now. That is her strength. Anyway.
Somewhere Kip and Ross are laughing.
Okay, I don't even want to. Oh gosh, you are throwing me off. Okay, let's just leave it with.
Let's just go back in time and get back on track.
I can read a book about dragons, and as long as the system seems to make sense, as that like how it works, yes, I can suspend judgment and be like, I'm going to get lost in this fantasy world where dragons live, and maybe people ride the dragons, but you have to have rules in your world, and I feel like. In some of these movies and stuff, they get lazy because they're just trying to pump them out, and it's all about special effects or whatever, and it's not as story-driven sometimes, and they lose track of the details, and I don't like that.
I agree, and I think Marvel had gone that way.
Oh, you agree with me?
Yeah, I mean, ever since Endgame, the Marvel movies have been very hit or miss.
Yeah.
Most of them have been miss. This movie gets it back on track.
Well, that's good.
It has the heart and feeling of the best of the Marvel movies. The CGI is good, and everything makes sense in this movie.
So it's kind of like Marvel also with Disney. Like, I feel like every time Disney does those live animation retellings, like I haven't seen Lilo and Stitch, but I've heard it's horrible. What? Why are you laughing?
Yeah.
Like that? I mean, I've heard it's not, and I'm like, a lot of them just weren't good. I don't even watch most of them.
You're going to get our daughter fired.
Oh, I'm sorry, Maria. No, but all the cartoons are great. No, I'm just saying, I've heard it. I'm just saying, I don't think I've seen anything the critics didn't. I did try to watch Snow White on the plane. Whew. Okay, anyway, yeah, not good. I don't think Disney's surprised by that feedback about Snow White. I think if you look at everything and like the CGI and everything on it, you're just like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyway.
You know what? It didn't need good CGI. Our Vacation Bible School decorations this week.
Oh, my gosh, y'all. Okay. So on my trip, I went to visit, I'll talk about this later, but I went to the Cloisters, which is like this museum in New York, and it houses medieval like art and things like that. So you feel like almost when you're there, like you're there with like in a castle or something. And I saw the pictures because I wasn't here the first night, but I got to see it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday of VBS. And I was like, what in the world? It was amazing. Like up and down the hall, they put, it was like the plasticky stuff that made our entire hall.
They transformed our church into a castle.
And then they even have, but they didn't just have like the stone looking things. They had like the pretty, how they would have like the fabric that I'm doing a terrible job. But also, Tim and Cindy dressed up. We had a suit of armor up there, and Jonathan built a dragon that was on top of the castle. Mm-hmm. It was like next level. I was just like, this is like, I feel like something a mega church would have or something. It was so good.
Yeah, we got some talented people in the church.
We do. So they are so creative.
Well, let's talk Vacation Bible School, because you and I kind of share the same belief in that Vacation Bible School, it may have run its course. Like there's growing up, every church in the world did Vacation Bible School.
Right.
But also growing up in our age, you didn't have the world at your fingertips, literally. And so as people are traveling more, as kids are getting more just locked into their devices, just whatever, VBS attendance has been plummeting for years, and less churches are doing Vacation Bible School.
And people are having to recreate it. Like people are having to try things like, are we going to do it 9 to 11 in the morning, or are we going to do it at night? Because when we were growing up, Vacation Bible School, at least for me, was a whole week. Was it for you? And that was like this thing I looked forward to all summer, because there were like, your family usually took one vacation a year. I feel like, families didn't go on vacation.
People didn't travel as
You
much.
didn't have travel sports and stuff. So you went on one vacation a year. If you were lucky, you might get to go to some sort of camp for a week, We'll talk about that sometime, Springs of Life, where I went. And then Vacation Bible School. And I think also Vacation Bible School was such that you had it once, but you kind of just only learned about it if you drove by and saw the sign. We didn't have social media and stuff. So it also wasn't like I was going to 5 vacation Bible schools in the summer or something. And the final thing is I loved it because it was something to do. But I don't remember my vacation Bible schools having any sort of theme. Like, it was just kind of like we just went and there was a lesson and you do a craft. And I remember one year the craft we did, somebody had cut out wood, it was probably pieces of old wood. Somebody had shaped like a watermelon slice and we painted it. Well, obviously that probably didn't go with the theme because I don't know what a slice of watermelon would have to do with anything. But like, it was not, I mean, if you look, it was probably pretty lame compared to what we just talked about with this
what
VBS.
happened was the answer to every question in the world is money.
Yeah.
Some Christian publishing company figured out a way how they could financially monetize Vacation Bible School. So they started creating these elaborate themes. And
just like ours was like a castle renaissance, the armor of God kind of thing.
And, they sell the theme, they sell the kits, they have all this add-on stuff. And then all of a sudden these churches started trying to outdo one another.
Right.
Almost like a neighborhood Christmas light decorating contest.
Yeah, that's true.
Like who can have the biggest and the best. And then it got to where churches, I mean, let's face it, they don't have the money they used to coming in.
Right.
And so the only churches that could do Vacation Bible School and do it
with a lot of bling.
Pizzazz,
it
was mega churches.
Right.
And they would get the bounce houses and they would get all this, they would do all of this stuff and make it almost carnival-like to draw the kids there.
Which then, if you're just like the small church, this like on our last night, we're having hot dogs and chips as our celebration, and painting a slice of watermelon, how are you going to compete with the church that has the bounce house one night and the water slide the next night and, brings in a famous singer or something, all of that.
It's really like the mega church has become the Walmart, and they have put the mom and pop VBSs out of business.
That's almost true. It feels like for church in general, like the mega church has but maybe we wouldn't even say Walmart because it's got the flash and bling, but I get what you're saying. It's the big box store, but a little higher end. Or
so
whatever.
I noticed less and less VBS signs this summer than I've ever noticed before.
Yeah.
And so anyway, several years ago, I was all for us just pulling the plug. I didn't see a purpose in Vacation Bible School. And there was one lady in the church that championed the cause, and she was like, no, I want to do it. And I was like, then do it. Then I don't want to be responsible. We're not going to make people do it. This isn't going to be something we just fill a calendar with. Find people that are passionate about it and run with it. And she did.
That's when we did it at the Hub, I think. That was one of those that we did.
We did,
Re-envisioned part of it.
Yeah, we did part of it in a park. We've done it. And so it just kind of,
because we thought about the concept of taking VBS to the neighborhood kind of thing. Again, people reinventing how you do VBS, thinking maybe part of the problem is parents having to bring their kids. So if you kind of go to the kids, it was a rethinking of VBS.
Right. And now that we have our own building, which we've had for quite a while now, we do it there. But even then, when we got the own building, I was like, I don't know if we even still need to do this.
Right.
And we had this dedicated group that was like, no, we want to do it. We love it. And so as a pastor, I know Tim and myself, we have no part in VBS. They don't even ask us to be a part of it. We just stop in every night, shake some hands, say hey to the kids, just make an appearance. But these volunteers that we have there, and there was a lot of them, they love VBS.
And historically, even me as the pastor's wife, I used to I would go volunteer, lead a group or whatever, but I've got no talent in this space. This is not my area. I'm not a decorator. I'm not coming up with the fun snacks or whatever. That's not my thing. And so same for me. It was I would usually volunteer with the group or help with the games or something like that. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
And our Vacation Bible School, the numbers were lower this year.
Yeah.
But
they were consistent. They were
Yeah.
probably more consistent than we have ever had. And they grew every night,
which is cool.
unheard of.
Yeah.
And so usually you start off Sunday night with a bigger crowd, and then it slowly dwindles throughout the week.
Yeah.
So I was real happy about that. That describes Re3 Church to perfection. A small but steady number that gets things done and is consistent.
Yes. And that's the other thing I was going to say that I liked about it is like, yes, it was elaborate in what they did, but again, it wasn't like smoke and mirrors and lights, like it was, we do everything on a budget at Re3. And I think as great as the decorations and stuff was, I think what kept people coming back is like, what was happening and the people there. Mm-hmm. And there was one, we didn't stay, we popped in last night, but they shared a video afterwards. We just had a group chat of those of us that work at the church and do VBS, and we're volunteering. And the two volunteers that dressed up, in the like night suit and stuff, had like a knighting ceremony where they were knighting the kids, and it made me want to cry. Like, it was like, I think it was Wendy and Tim I saw in the video doing that. And they were just like speaking life into these kids. Like, I mean, even now it kind of makes me tear up because I just think about like, for even good kids that are in church and stuff all the time or have a good parents pouring into them or, I shouldn't say good kids. It's not good kids and bad kids. I guess what I'm trying to say is even for kids who are lucky enough, that's what I'm trying, kids who are fortunate enough to be surrounded by love or whatever. One of the things you and I talked about is like studies how it takes like, if you hear one negative thing, it sticks to you like glue, mm-hmm. right?
Yeah.
But it takes like 7 positive comments to stick because we are programmed as human beings. We've got this negativity bias or whatever that protects us in the world. So it takes like 6 or 7 pieces of affirmation, I would say, to cancel out, a negative message. And if you think about, even the most fortunate people in the world that, have people that love them, how many positive messages, how often do you have somebody speaking life into you, like telling you, like, you are God's chosen or you are loved or God has plans for your future, kind of thing. And then you take that to the flip side for the kids who aren't fortunate, like maybe even if they have a loving family, maybe they're picked on at school or they don't have any friends or, things like that. They're not getting that. And to me, that was like a beautiful thing that I think in my mind just kind of transformed the whole thing. Because like you and I were talking about, like, we were like, has VBS run its course? Is this one of those things we don't need anymore? Do you see any, quote, return on your investment? Because like we'll have it all these years and it's not like you're necessarily picking up new people or whatever.
Because that tends to be what Vacation Bible School is. It's just
an outreach.
You get a group of parents, a group of people that they probably mark on their calendar when all the VBSs are, and they just move their kids around.
Because they use it as like a
free babysitting
service.
Yeah.
A lot
and so they just send the kids to 6 or 7 VBS over the summer, so they don't have to hang out with their kids at night.
Yeah.
And that's what I see and I hear from other pastors. They're like, yeah, we had 100 kids. Well,
right.
How many of them came from your church? 20.
Right, yeah.
So, where'd the other 80 come from? Other churches.
And do they ever come back afterwards? No. They're just right. And so I think it kind of made me flip it on its head last night seeing that video because I was trying to think, like, what's the value? Particularly if they're going around to a lot of different churches and, like, learning the same Bible lessons and stuff like that. But I think the value is those volunteers we have that did that, whether they were working at the table greeting people, because we also had volunteers that might not volunteer at some other things that are really getting plugged in. But those kids were having like love and life spoken into them. And so to me, that's like worth the time and the expense, and yeah, I would think, is it running its course and will it eventually fizzle out? It may, because we've had this conversation about church camp too. We love it and we're dedicated. We may not be able to compete and stay drawing kids, but I think as long as we are, I think it's probably worth it if you're doing what I consider the quality work, which is really loving and speaking life to these kids.
Yeah, and I think it gives youth a good chance to plug in.
That was also awesome.
You know, the youth are often overlooked in most churches, you know.
As servants.
As servants, yeah. And so this gives them a chance to, like, Josh's 15 and he helped head up games this week. Yeah. And
every night he was like the one, dropped off and he did the games. Yeah. And so it gave him a leadership and
both our other two older ones, they've all gone through VBS. They've all served at VBS.
Right. Yeah.
And so, it's almost a pay it forward type thing.
And it's really cool, too, for the youth, like with Josh, because we've talked about he was always and is the youngest, So in the friend groups and the sibling groups, he was usually always the one that, like, the older kids were kind of doing that for. And so it's neat to then kind of see that transition where he's then the one kind of pouring into or doing the work with the younger kids. So it's a really neat shift that you get to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll do VBS again next year.
Yep. And I'm sure it'll be amazing. We're going to have a dragon that breathes fire next year, but we won't have that same thing. We're going to figure out how to use that dragon and make it breathe fire.
It's probably going to end up in our shed out behind the church, and then we'll throw it away in about 5 years.
Brooke's already thinking about Fall Fest, because we also have an amazing Fall Fest at our church where all the kids can come, like, trunk or treat and stuff. Mm-hmm. And those folks go all out when they're doing their trunks. And so I am seeing a dragon in our future. Yeah.
All right.
For that.
So I got a question for you. This is something that it was funny. I finally got around to finishing watching the final season of Curb Your Enthusiasm, which is the Larry David show. Larry David helped create Seinfeld with Jerry Seinfeld. And he's had a show on HBO for 25 years now called Curb Your Enthusiasm. And he don't have 25 seasons, but, about every other year, every 2 or 3 years, he has a new season. The other season maybe wrapped up last year, I want to say, the final season. So I finally got around to finish watching it. There was a scene in one of the final episodes, last couple, where Larry tells his friend Jeff that he's going to do something. And then it doesn't go well. Mm-hmm. And Jeff says, I kind of had a hunch. And Larry was like, well, if you had a hunch, why didn't you tell me? And he was like, well, it's a hunch. I'm not under any obligation to tell you. I just had a hunch.
Right.
And Larry was like, no, you should have told me that you had a hunch. Like, it would have changed, so they got into this whole discussion. So I just thought, okay, that's an interesting take. A week later, I'm playing board games with Ross. We're playing Board Game Arena. We're online one night, and something happens. And I just said, I had a hunch. And Ross goes, well, why didn't you tell me?
Oh.
It was the exact conversation.
Which is why you like Curb Your Enthusiasm, because even though it's
so
uncomfortable, it's real life.
It is so uncomfortable, awkward real life.
But it makes me uncomfortable. Sometimes I can't watch it because it makes me cringe. Yeah. But anyway,
and I'm like, why should I have told you? And he was like, well, you should have, if you knew it was a hunch, you should have said something. So then we started debating, when you have a hunch, that gut feeling.
Yeah.
Should you tell the person or not? And so you were away, as you just said earlier.
Yes.
You've been gone all year. You were away. You weren't around that night. You were doing, and so we both said, we want to get Beth's take on this hunch thing.
Right.
And so I have not mentioned that to you till right now. So this is a spontaneous reaction. But hearing that, so if you're going to make a choice about something, and I had a hunch something would happen if you made choice A or choice B, and then it happened, and it didn't turn out great, and I said, I kind of had a hunch that would happen. How would you feel? Like, when you have a hunch or that gut feeling, do you keep it to yourself or do you tell the person?
Okay, so this is hard. And the reason I say this is hard, well, first of all, I'm an external verbal processor, so I have to think through as you're saying this
all
in
your
my head.
hunches are out loud.
They are. They tend, I'm saying it out loud to somebody, but I think there's a few things in this. Well, number one, if I have a hunch, part of it depends on who I'm having the hunch about and how much I think they would listen. And what I mean by that is, for example, if I have a hunch about a mistake my kids are about to make and it's not life-threatening, it's small, and I'm just kind of like, yeah, I'm not seeing this friendship go well, or I don't think this dating thing's going to go well. Because there was one person, one of our kids dated one time, and I told you literally from the moment I met that person. Remember, you were like, oh, I like that person. And I was like, I just had a hunch that this person, but as we talked about, a parent telling their child, like particularly in a situation like that, like, oh, I think that person may not be the best for you, usually has the exact opposite effect. Like instead of that hunch, if I told that child that, it probably subconsciously would make that person more appealing to the child. So I have to think about, like, is this a person that if I tell them my hunch, they're in a position to hear it? So like you and Ross as friends is probably a little different than like me trying to tell my kids. Also, I think if I have intuition or a hunch and it's like, if it were super serious or life-threatening.
Yeah, I'm not talking red flag.
Yeah, like
that's not a hunch.
Yeah, but like just a gut reaction that something's going to happen. My problem with that is I then go introspective with my hunches because I'm a person, I do have a lot of intuition. We've talked about this before. But then I'm always like second guessing it. Like, is this intuition or is this like my anxiety? Or is this intuition or is this just like me telling myself this because I want this outcome, And so like if you and Ross were playing a game, the concern would be two things, I think, if you told him your hunch. First of all, would Ross think you're just telling him that hunch because you really want to win the game, or whatever? Is he even going to believe you on the hunch? The second thing is, are you influencing the outcome? Like if you tell Ross the hunch, are you then planting that seed of doubt in his mind, which is influencing the outcome? Do you understand what I'm saying? Like that's my concern with like telling somebody else the hunch, because it's just my gut. It's not life or death. You're playing a game. You're seeing in your head, you're like, yeah, I'm thinking this may not work. And you're like, well, I'm going to let it play out and see what happens.
Well, and that became the topic. There was, there's another guy on the show, JB Smooth, and his character lives with Larry David and is, quite the opposite of Larry in every way.
Right.
But he gets involved in this conversation. And his take is, he goes to the physical. What is a hunch? It's kind of the moving of the shoulders kind of up, And when you look up hunch.
It's like shrugging, kind of like,
When you look up hunch in the dictionary, it says to raise and bend the top of one's body forward. Yeah. And he's like, a hunch is a hunch. Like if you say something and you do that shoulder thing, that's your way of communicating. I don't know.
I wish people could see us because that is kind of what I do sometimes if somebody asks me, like if they're like, well, should I get the tuna or the salmon? And I'm like, I'm kind of thinking the salmon, or whatever. But you do your shoulders
so
like that.
The verb version would be the hunching, the actual, and the noun version would be a feeling or a guess, like you said, based on intuition. Rather than known facts.
Right.
And so we have a gut feeling. We have a internal hunch.
Right.
We physically hunch.
Yeah.
Is that enough?
Well, here's the other problem with it. So so I worry that if I articulate my hunch just by saying it out loud to the person, I've influenced the outcome in a different way that it's going to go. So like, because what you can't know is, so by not saying that hunch, you see it plays out as it naturally would, and your hunch is either validated or it's not. But if you say that hunch and plant that seed of doubt, are you influencing what happens with that hunch? That's part of I think, the struggle with the hunch. And then the other issue I have with the hunch is, so say you tell them the hunch and then they're like, well, why? You can't, as a person, I'm a lawyer, so I am trained. You have facts, you look at evidence, you analyze it, you use logic. I'm also a thinker. I do that all the time. But that's the struggle with the hunch. it's intuition. You feel it in your gut. It's just this somehow subconsciously, you're taking all the patterns you've seen in your life. You're taking situations that and none of this has happened consciously, but you're taking all this information that you have, and something in your nervous system or your brain is like, I'm feeling like this is going to go towards A and not B. But if you asked me to tell you, I don't know how I could, or I might be able to list 20 things that don't make sense.
I'm not saying every time, but most of the time, do you share the hunch or not? Most
of the time, I do not share the hunch.
Okay, I would say most of the time, I do not either.
Yeah.
And because, like you, I don't want to influence that person's decision. I think another part, I don't want to be wrong.
Well, exactly, because I'm like, what if I say this and then they do it and then they're like, well, they're mad or whatever.
Yeah, and that was kind of Jeff's point on Curve. It was kind of like, it was.
Because you don't know. And if I told, and then later, if that person came back and said, well, why did you tell me that? Again, it goes back to that whole thing. Well, because it was just a hunch. I can't explain all the or even if I try to explain, it's not going to make any sense because it's not like a logical, like the X happened, then Y, so that equals Z. It's more like a whole lifetime of stuff.
And that's why the other character was like, you got a hunch. You just physically got a hunch, and that gets you off the hook. Like, you saw me hunch. Like, that was my symbol to really think through this.
And sometimes, and the one time that I think the differentiating factor is too, I usually don't just volunteer the hunch. If somebody asks me what they should do, like you're sitting there, we're playing Azul, and, Ross is like, should I take the red tiles or the flower tiles or whatever?
Ross would never ask you that.
I know he wouldn't, but just as a hypothetical, we'll say Doug did. Well, Doug wouldn't either, nor would Luke. And no one we play games with would ask me any of this. But let's say they did. That might be a time if they've asked it, I might just say, well, I've got a hunch, or I think I would probably do this. I don't know if it would work out. And I know this game is like, this is not life or death, but I think that's why we don't do it. Because then if Ross does it and then later loses the game or nothing happens the way I thought it would. But I also think a lot of the time, though, we do find that we're right in our hunches. I think our gut's right a lot of the time. So maybe we should speak them, but I don't know because...
It goes all the way back to the Enneagram.
Yeah.
We're in the different triads.
Yeah.
I'm in the gut triad. You're in the head triad.
Yeah.
So...
Even though I use my intuition a lot, but I usually, and I think that's part of the thing, I try to think through my intuition. Like I try to use my brain to interpret
just go with my hunch.
intuition.
Whatever my gut says, I go with it.
Yeah, but you don't tell other people what they are.
I try not to.
You just keep it all inside.
I do. And then when y'all crash, I think, I saw that.
And you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to really bring up now that I knew this was going to happen. And that you were making a ton of mistakes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
That armchair quarterbacking is...
It's not armchair. It's just revisionist history.
Yeah, well, that too. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right, last thing that I want to bring up today on the show. You mentioned you went out of town.
Yeah.
You went to New York City again. We're not going to talk about New York City because you've been like 12 times this year and you've talked about it at nauseum. And I have yet to be invited to New York City.
Oh, I'm like, okay, anyway, sorry.
And maybe we'll unpack some of the negatives you experienced on another podcast. But there was something you did this week or last weekend when you went on this girls' trip to New York City that I've never done. I am fundamentally opposed to, but you did it for the first time, I guess, and all your girlfriends do this. They love this. And that is what is known as check splitting.
Well, I will say, I wouldn't say they all do it because we had a nice conversation afterwards about it, but keep going.
So
yes.
Let's just set the stage. You go out with 6 people,
yes,
8 people, whatever. You all order different stuff. The waiter or waitress comes over.
Plates. Some are getting an appetizer.
The waiter or waitress comes over. How would you like to split the checks? Is this all one? Is what? Here where we're at in the South, in North Carolina, there's only 2 options. People either pay for everyone's meal, or you're pointing out, they're with me, mine, and you make that poor waiter or waitress split it up based on what you actually ordered.
And if they wouldn't split it up, you sit and use something to calculate. Like I got the $4 soda and the $32 salmon, and I'm calculating so I can pay the person that pays.
Right. But you experienced what I think a lot of, I would say more metropolitan areas do, which is if the bill's $100 and there's 6 people, just divide it up evenly and everybody pays the same thing.
Yes. So,
I would call that socialist dining.
Well, it's interesting you just said that, because once I started talking about it, I had never experienced this. So the first time we did it, I was like, oh my gosh, what is happening? But the reason I think it worked, we had a group of like 12 people, okay? So this is not an easy thing for everybody to nitpick and get it down to the penny, and no server is going to be able to split us all up that way. And it was a situation where there was a family of 4, then there were 2 people, then everybody else is individual. So it wasn't even like each person. So what we tended to do, and so my friend Shazia was the one who initially was like, all right, well, let's just divide it all by 12, and then of course they're taking 4/12 if they have 4 people, and everybody else is doing 1/12 of the money, and we're piling it all together. Well, afterwards, I mentioned that to you because I said, oh my gosh, it was so much easier than nickel and diming, because especially since we ate more than one meal out, I honestly believe it kind of worked out for us most of the time, because like, even though I might eat less than somebody in one meal or a cheaper meal, I might get a more expensive. And here's the other thing. It was so easy to take a calculator and just say, this is what I owe, than to try to calculate and nickel and dime it. And the reason it was so refreshing is, in the end, if we'd nickeled and dimed it, I tried to think through, how much more would I really have spent? What would it have let's say, quote, saved me? $5.50? I mean, I probably should go back and do the math. Maybe I overpaid on one meal by like $5. Is that worth the time and effort, that it took? So I mentioned to you, I was like, it was really refreshing and almost kind of freeing to not feel so like, I don't know, transactional in the meal, and so worried about it. But then you were like, oh my gosh, we got to talk about this on the podcast. So then I went back to the room because I was like, all right, I got to figure out, is this a metropolitan thing? Is this a U.S. versus, so my friend Shazia grew up in India and then moved to the UK. So I was trying to piece out in my mind, is this a UK, a European or thing, an Indian thing, an American thing, a Western versus not? So when I mentioned this to everybody and we started talking through the pros and cons, and I mentioned it to Shazia and her husband was like, oh no, this isn't a United States thing. He's like, when I go out in the UK, we do it the US way. Like they do the nickel and diming, whatever. And he said he thinks it's India where they're from. And Shazi is like, well, I don't know, because when I go out with my friends in the UK, we do it the way I do it, the way we do it in India.
So you think it's a man-woman thing?
No, I think it may be, I think in India, they do it that way. I don't know about the UK. I haven't been out with enough people from there. And then there's us in the US. But some things we thought about for it to work or not work that were interesting. I think the key is if you're kind of upfront, like, hey, everybody, how are we going to do it? Because we talked about this too. We were all ordering. Shazia pointed out that a lot of times when this whole plan falls apart is if you have people, alcohol tends to be a really expensive thing on the bill. If you have non-drinkers of alcohol and drinkers of alcohol, it can become unfair really quickly, because if you've got people So she said what they do for that scenario is they put the alcohol on a different bill. And people who are drinking alcohol split the alcohol bill. All other food and drink is on the other bill. So we talked about that. But then we also talked about if we had gone to a restaurant and we had somebody that maybe truly was, and I'm not saying this because I don't think this works. I don't care if you're cheap, but I'm talking about somebody who really just didn't have the money. Like maybe they were like, I'm going to this restaurant because I want to be with my friends, but I've already looked at the restaurant. It's out of the price range. And maybe you haven't talked about it up front. And they're like, I'm buying the side salad and I'm going to tell them I'm not hungry because I can't afford all that. Well, if you spring this on them at the end, that could be problematic for them financially. They may not be able to pay for it. But I think in our scenario, again, I go back to, we were all kind of eating, very similarly priced things. No one was like, I'm getting a $200 bottle of wine. And then other people are like, I'm not drinking anything. We didn't have that. So for us, it was just this refreshing, like, we're just splitting this and you just knew it. And it also, there was so much sharing. It helped a lot, when somebody gets the appetizer and you're not having to say, oh, well, because how many times in this Western culture, the way we do it in the States, are we having to say, well, put the appetizer on mine, or let's split the appetizer in half, like it just took away all of that. And I think for me, I struggle sometimes with money. I've had to evolve over the years because I feel like if you go through phases, like, when we got married, we didn't have any money. If you've gone through times when you really don't have a lot of money, it causes you to put a lot of emphasis. And I used to spend a lot of time to the point that I remember being in Target trying to look for clearance all the time. That I remember Maria looked at something at Target. So obviously it probably wasn't very expensive. It was a piece of clothing. She's like, but it's only 25% off. We'll have to wait till the 75. I'd like programmed her to like, well, I've got to save that $3. Or I went through this phase where I was couponing. Did that save some money? Well, maybe. But in the end, how much is that $4 I'm saving, in coupons, especially when you looked at my time, the time I spent cutting the coupons and stuff. And I guess that's kind of what this comes down to for this. If we were sort of aligned in things, I just look at the time we saved that we weren't sitting there like calculating a bill. Because again, in the end, is $5 worth the time that we would have to sit there at the restaurant and not be out doing fun things, for us to nickel and dime or to worry about who was paying for the appetizer. So for me, it just felt really freeing. It was just kind of a different way to do things, which then made me view, I think, my money and spending in a different way with all those caveats that I talked about. Because I do get, you could have some situations where somebody goes crazy and stuff like that. I don't think that would be fair, but I feel like in our scenario, it was.
I fundamentally disagree with everything you just said.
Of course you do.
There is no way I would ever split a ticket like that. Because I know what's going to happen. I'm going to go and I'm going to order a $12 hamburger.
Right.
The other person's going to order a $30 steak.
Yeah.
So now it's $42. Now I'm paying $21 for my hamburger when I chose to eat a $12 hamburger. And they're paying $21 for a steak they should have paid $30 for. And so that's problem number one, is it's just going to be, there's nothing's going to be equal. And yeah, you could say, well, it'll balance out. No, it won't, because unless you're on a trip with the exact same people like you were, and you eat 8 meals together, it's probably not going to balance out, because the next person you eat with is going to have a totally different eating. And I know me, I would be self-conscious, like, well, if they're ordering the $12 burger, even though I may want the $30 steak, I feel guilty now. And now I feel like I need to order something closer to that price range. And that would be the internal guilt that I feel. So to me, when you eat in a silo. You eat like that is your food. You're paying for that food, that bill. Nobody else is expected to pay for what you are consuming. This is mine. This is my food. This is my drinks. This is where I'm at. Now, the one time we do something with a group of friends, there's some guys that I'll go eat lunch with on a fairly regular basis. We'll say like my buddy Sam, right? Sam and I'll go meet somewhere for lunch. And we'll be like, all right, waiter comes over, waitress, 1 check or 2. He'll say 1. And I'll be like, man, Sam, you don't have to get my lunch. And he's like, hey, you know what? You can get it next time.
I do that.
So the next time we go out,
you get it.
I get it. And that's, so I have 3 or 4 guys that we've been doing this for years.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, you got it last time, I get it this time.
Right.
And to me, that does balance out because you got to know what they're eating. You know what you're eating. And it's basically the same. I mean, it's not going to be, you go eat breakfast with somebody, And
you're always going to Cagney's. So there's not that much variation in the pricing of the breakfast at Cagney's, for example.
I think you buy it all or you buy just yours. The idea of splitting, I don't know who came up with that. I can imagine who came up with that, but I just think that that's crazy.
Okay, let me poke back for 1 minute though. Okay, but one of the trips I did with like my Salem girls, well, 2 of them, we all were staying at a house and like sharing food. We weren't eating out, so somebody had to go to the grocery store. Again, they were like, what do you want? And somebody's like, well, I want yogurt. Well, there may be somebody else that's like, I'm lactose intolerant. I'm not eating that yogurt. We're not going to sit then and say, like, okay, well, the yogurt has to be on a separate tab for only the people who eat yogurt. We just all threw in. So what if meat's more expensive than vegetables. So we had vegetarians who never ate meat. Like, for example, we weren't saying
I think that is a time when you're planning a vacation, you sort that out ahead of time. Do you want to buy and prepare your own food? Or do you want it to be a group effort? And if you do, we're going to buy the groceries and divide it.
Meal. But how is that then, if you've talked about it, how is that really that different than the restaurant scenario? Because in the end, somebody's going to eat more. I might not eat dessert or meat, and I may only drink water, and somebody else is drinking soda, eating meat, and having dessert. Well, then I'm just saying, or you can look at it with an apartment. Jacob rented an apartment and boom, one guy got the master and his own bathroom. Jacob got a smaller bedroom, had to share it. They didn't pay more or less based on that. I mean, are you going to get to the point with the square footage? Like this person has this.
Because a situation like that is first come, first serve.
Well, maybe,
yeah.
But I'm just saying there has to be.
The guy who had the master found the place.
Right.
And he's like, all right, this is my room. I'm going to rent out the other 2 rooms. And that was that. With the house thing and buying for food on a vacation, I guarantee there is nobody I've ever been on vacation with that eats like, I'm not going to eat any meat. I'm only going to eat vegetables and fruit. But even in that, fruit could easily cost as much as meat at times. You get people who buy junk food. That's going to cost as much as a steak at times. So it's going to balance out. I just think when you're doing the family vacation, buying groceries, that's a lot more balanced than,
But I think with the right parameters, the meal thing could be. I mean, again, I think it's the same concept.
That just seems like a lot of rules to sit down to have an enjoyable dinner.
But we didn't have any rules. That's the whole point. There was just like this mutual, I guess, respect or understanding that no one was like going crazy. But like, I don't know. I mean, again, I'm not saying it works in every situation because we discussed it and we acknowledged that there are limits on when this scenario works. But for the time that we did it, it worked and it was really refreshing. Again, to not feel like I'm nickel and diming or like counting out every bit of what I'm doing, to not be so transactional. That part was kind of nice.
I can tell you, right, I will go to my grave and never split a check evenly.
All right, good to know.
I mean, if somebody was like, hey, is it all right if we just split the check? I'll be that guy to be like, no, I'll just pay for mine.
Well, but I will tell you too, and I know if you put this on a poll, I'm going to lose. I know, because we're going to the only people that tend, even if we have listeners in other countries that do it a different way, I feel like the only people that respond to our polls are people in the States. And this is a new concept and a different concept. So I doubt that I would win by any stretch. But I'm just saying, I think it's just, this is one of the things I love about travel and having a really diverse base of friends is like you just learn. This concept, like we can read about different cultures all day. Like, oh, in this culture, they like to eat this spice on their food. Okay, there's things everybody knows. By doing this and traveling with someone that came from two different cultural backgrounds, from India and the UK, and is approaching the world in a different way based on that culture. For me, again, look at how much I've thought about that. I guess that's the main point of it all. It's not that it's right or wrong, but by having people around you that have grown up differently, that have different worldviews, it just makes you think and wonder, why do I do it the way I do?
Because we're right. It is right or wrong.
Oh, no.
And if I was at a table of people and they were all like, look, we're going to split the check. In my mind, I'd be like,
you're paying for your piece.
Or I'd be like, all right, I'm ordering the most expensive thing on the menu because I know I'm not going to have to pay for all of it.
That's why you wouldn't be
Somebody else will pay for it.
You wouldn't be good at communal living.
That's what's wrong with society today.
I know.
I'm going to get the most expensive thing and make somebody else pay for it.
That would be, oh my gosh. Yeah, I could see you. I mean, and I do get the point. I do. But I stand by what I said. It gave me something to think about. I learned something that I wouldn't have known otherwise. And now I've got another thing that
I learned something too.
What'd you learn?
I learned you'll fall for anything.
Oh gosh.
They'll just suck you in. If all they got to do is make it seem new and trendy.
And I'll be like, ooh,
yeah,
I've got to do this new
This
trendy
is what
thing.
we do in India. And you're like, oh, I'm going to do that because that sounds exotic.
Okay, you believe what you want to believe about that. But I thought it was a really interesting concept, and it was, I don't know.
I had a hunch you'd say that.
Yeah, I bet you did. But you didn't tell me you had a hunch I would say that.
No, but
yeah, you had a hunch how this whole conversation would go.
I did, and it went exactly the way I thought it would go.
But if you told me about the hunch, would that have influenced how I behaved? Maybe. Because if you told me that I was going to fight you on this, then I would be in my head. I'd be like, he told me he had a hunch that I was going to fight, so I'm going to prove him wrong. So then that would cancel out your hunch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'd lose some viewers because I think most listeners like us to fight.
So the poll question, are we going to ask about the hunches or the splitting the bill?
The splitting the bill. That's going to be the poll question.
Oh, but the hunch is a good one too.
No, well, the splitting the bill is the best.
But no, it's not, because we already know that 99 out of 100.
We can do
no,
poll questions.
I'm just saying 99 out of 100 people are going to be like, absolutely not. I would never do what Beth's done. Well, I guess you've got to ask three things. Like, do you do the swap off? Like, you pay the whole bill? Like it's, there's a few different ways to split it. But yeah, you got to think about how you word it. But anyway.
Okay, I can do that.
Maybe we have two poll questions. I like the hunch one too.
All right.
Keeping it interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, do it, lady. All right, Beth. Well, that's about it for today.
Oh, and don't forget to put the regal picture
of the regal picture.
But can we put not just this picture, because it's not the most flattering of Cam. Can we also put a regal picture, a truly regal picture of him up, please?
I don't think we have one.
We do. Oh, my gosh.
All right. Thank you for listening. This has been another episode of Hey, Are You Still There?
Yes, where we talk about the intersection of marriage, kids, faith, careers.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. I did a good job with that, right?
You did.
Yeah, it wasn't even scripted. Nothing in this is scripted.
No, it isn't. Beth never knows what we're going to talk about week to week. So.
Surprise!
Yeah. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next week.